So this is a video I've been meaning to make for a long time, but I've been avoiding it because just like the last video where I talked about a little bit of criticism I had towards a couple of things with Nintendo, I worry about backlash because I do this for a living, and as someone who does YouTube for a living, and I happen to be a small YouTuber, even losing 20 or 30 subs can become a big deal over time. That's potentially 20 to 30 less viewers of your content in the future, because these are people that clearly saw the video, and not all of our subs see the video, so that kind of sucks. But I'm going to make it anyways, because I always told myself, as a YouTuber, all I can do is make the content I want to make and be honest with myself and with you guys, the viewers. And here is what we're talking about today. I want to talk about why people making excuses for and defending multi-billion-dollar companies is absolutely asinine. In fact, fans sometimes defend these companies to the point that you would think they're almost on the payroll for companies like Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, Steam, etc. Let me just give you an example. So like the video I made yesterday where I criticized the pricing of the dock, and I criticized the amount of memory in the Switch, and most people focused on the dock, which is understandable. That made up about 90% of the video. A lot of people were firing back at me about how Nintendo is a for-profit company and blah, 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 and have you seen the cost of USB this, and have you seen how phones charge on the things? Well, like all these excuses just bringing up, I'm trying to justify Nintendo's pricing. And here's the thing, I'm guilty of this as well. Way back when the dock first came out, I tried to rationalize and justify that $90 purchase. I looked up other USB-C docks and dongles out there, and I saw a wide range of pricing, everything from like $10 all the way up to like $300. But I noticed something with the $90 and up price range is that they happen to include a hell of a lot more features than the Nintendo Switch dock did. But I still kind of stuck by Nintendo and defended the pricing a little bit, as maybe this is just what they're charging now. I didn't think it was going to be a long-term price. And we all know, like on Amazon, you can buy them for $66 right now. I think Target was charging just $60 a little bit ago. So it's not like we can't get them for under $90 now anyways, readily and easily. But it's still not the standard pricing. It's still not MSRP. These are just retailers reducing price on stock that they've probably had sitting there for over a year and haven't been able to sell due to how much they cost and people not willing to pay that much. There is a thing, obviously, in business and marketing called, supply and demand, and part of that has to do with pricing. It's not just about, like, there's clearly demand out there for extra docks, either because the first dock they had come with their system no longer works. I've heard of that happening, or because people have multiple TVs in their home and they don't want to keep moving their dock around, or because people travel a lot, and while they play their Switch portably, when they're at the hotel, they would love to dock it and play it on a TV, and they can't, or if they're at their parents' house or their grandparents' house and all this stuff. They don't really have a portable solution because as awesome as the dock is, there is a thin lip of plastic on the front that you really don't want to risk bending or snapping off, because that all affects how you can use the dock yourself. So, third-party companies came out with solutions that were obviously a lot cheaper and probably cheaper made, to be fair, to hit those price points. And with their own power cords, which, I would argue you probably shouldn't use. I feel like it should be safe for a platform like Switch, but Switch does appear to have, to be lacking safeguards that other devices have. Let me give you an example. You can buy third-party charging cables for iPhones. They are not guaranteed to work by Apple, of course, because they don't test them. Usually they do work. Sometimes they charge a little slower. Sometimes you can't transfer data to your computer through those cords. Sometimes you can, and sometimes they work great, and then a month later they just stop working. But what's consistent in all of that, as those third-party accessories stop working, is it doesn't cause any real damage to this, the phone itself. Just the cord doesn't work anymore. Then you need to go and buy more officially licensed products, and those cords work just fine and don't present any issues. But these safeguards aren't really there in Switch. When a third-party cord delivers too much power or too little power, there's nothing, there's no transistors inside the Switch that protects the Switch from those bad cords. And it's really weird because this exists in other USB-C phones as well. I have a Samsung Galaxy S8 that uses official Samsung cord, but when I use third-party cords with it, sometimes the cords work, sometimes they don't, but the Samsung official cord always works because, well, the phone has safeguards in it for when third-party stuff malfunctions. It's not even just third-party stuff. These are safeguards that exist, period, because even if I use my Samsung phone, if I have it plugged into a wall and my house happens to get hit by lightning or a power line gets hit by lightning nearby and there's a shock sent through, because I don't always have my phone plugged in through, a surge protector, my phone's protected inside the phone itself. It has a method of protecting itself from that stuff so the phone doesn't get bricked or damaged in that way. Now, I'm not saying there's not extenuating circumstances, and that might even be one where it still might get bricked. But the point I'm making here is that fans just look for any possible way to defend what they love. And it's really weird for me because I love the Nintendo Switch. It is amazing. It is the system that got me back into gaming. And I'm probably going to make a video on why exactly that is. What about Switch made me become basically a hardcore gamer all over again. I haven't been a hardcore gamer in a long time. It's been many years. I've been playing games for 30 years, but I haven't necessarily been a hardcore gamer that whole time, especially after having children. Switch made a big difference for me, and it's a huge reason why I love the platform. It's a huge reason why I now own more video games today, as of right now, more games purchased in the past year than I have probably purchased in the past 10, because I love the platform that much. But it's not perfect, and it's okay to be critical of multi-billion-dollar companies. We're not talking about some mom-and-pop shop that is barely getting by and might do a price hike or might do X, Y, and Z because they need that money to get by. Nintendo does not need the dock to cost $90 at the market to be profitable. This is proven by everyone who has ever broken down the Switch, torn it apart, analyzed the plastics, analyzed the board, analyzed the parts being used, and realized this dock costs less than $15 or so to manufacture. And at that cost, they're charging you a premium. Let's just throw on an extra $5 or $10 for shipping and packaging. They're charging you, more than double what it costs to get it to the store and get it to your house. And they're doing that because they can get away with it. This is this is the mobile world. Phones get away with it as well. Don't believe them when you go from 32 gigabytes to 64 gigabytes to 128 gigabytes of storage. That really means the phone should cost $400 or $500 more than the base 32 gigabyte model. No, that the cost to move up those lines in manufacturing are less than $100, but they're charging you, 500, 600, 700% more than what it actually costs to get it up there. And they do that to get away with it. And it creates this mindset that that's okay because they don't give us the other options at the consumer level. Even when they, this is why some phones are applauded for including the micro SD slots. Because then you can upgrade yourself. And here's the thing. That NAND flash you're using is basically the exact same NAND flash that's in the phone. So if you want to look at the pricing of what it costs to upgrade NAND flash, look at the pricing of what NAND flash is when you go buy those micro SD cards. That's at the consumer level. That's not just manufacturing. So you could tell that it's obviously overpriced. But let's set all that aside, because I am kind of tired, and I'm going to be seeing this as long as I'm a YouTuber, as long as I'm in the public and making statements and having comments on my content, that people are going to always defense force Nintendo. This is what I have to see a lot. I see a lot of defense force for Sony and Microsoft as well out on the internet, but I deal with Nintendo, so we'll focus there. I don't know why people have this incessant need to basically attack anyone who has any sort of criticism of something that they don't think is a big deal. As an example, you might not think the storage issue or the NAND flash or the lack of backup saves are big issues. They don't matter to you. And that's okay. It's okay for these issues not to matter to you. But it's also okay for them to matter to other people. Everyone uses these systems in different ways. It's just like on PC. There are certain aspects of PC building and tech in general that matter to me more than they might matter to somebody else, because we all use these pieces of technology in different ways. The only thing in common with Switch is we all use it to game. But some people might buy only physical games and not really see much issue with the storage, whereas some people might buy all digital, and they do have a big issue with the amount of storage. Some people might want to use multiple docks in their home, and some people might not. Some people might want to use a dock when they're taking their Switch other places, and some people might not. So like a lot of these things might seem like non-factors for some people, but that's because they're not considering other consumers beyond themselves, nor should they. Let me be clear. It is okay for you to really only worry about the way that you use the Switch and the way that you want to game with it and the way that it affects your life. But when somebody else is talking about the way that it affects their life, you shouldn't therefore then impose on them the idea they're wrong because it doesn't affect your life in that way. You're not living their life and they're not living your life. They shouldn't be telling each other how to live their lives. So Nintendo's a multi-billion-dollar company, seeing record profit levels, not quite up to where they were during the Wii and DS era, but rising up to those levels over the past year, and it's going to continue to rise. Labo is going to end up being a big success, and I've even defended the price of Labo. Like I said, I'm guilty of defending things at times because I believe there are certain times when you can justify pricing on items, but then as time moves on, naturally, items usually become cheaper, except in the video game world for some reason, where it's still $60 for a brand new Xbox One controller at MSRP. I realize some sell it under MSRP, but it is what it is. I just feel like we as consumers have a right to criticize. We as consumers have a right to demand better. And what's really weird is when I criticize Nintendo, oftentimes I'm doing it in a pro-consumer way. Whereas the people that are telling me, oh, Nintendo doesn't need to do this. They don't need to do that. They don't have to make gaming cheaper and blah, 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 blah. They don't have to do any of that. But are you as a consumer going to complain if they did? What if Nintendo did cut the price of the dock to $40? What if they did release a new Switch at the end of this year that has 128 gigabytes and sold it for $300 or $350? Are you going to complain? I mean, you might complain that, oh, I was an early adopter, but early adopters always have issues. So you can bitch all you want, I'm an early adopter, but you can go trade in your Switch, which still has a massive trade-in value, and barely pay much else to get it. Are you going to complain about the lack of backup saves? Maybe not. Maybe not until something happens to you, and suddenly you lost thousands of hours of save data. It's one of those things like you're not going to complain about not having it, but if you did have it, you wouldn't be able to complain either, right? Because these are features, these are things, better online systems, local voice chat versus on an app, all these things that we have to nitpick at and criticize. And remember, this is nitpicking, okay? Let's be clear. Switch is a fantastic system. It's just not perfect. No system is. If I was a Sony channel or a Microsoft channel or a PC channel, I would be able to nitpick just as much about those platforms as well. And that's another argument I always see is, oh, why aren't you saying this about this? Well, because we're Nintendo Prime. We're not here to talk about those platforms. Maybe some other time we'll have another channel where we do. But for now, this is what we do. We talk about Nintendo. We talk about it passionately. And I talk about these things because I care, because I love the system, and because I always want it to be moving forward, not just staying stagnant. I want Nintendo to always improve the system and improve the experience for consumers. And part of that obviously involves making things a little bit more affordable. Imagine if the base OG 3DS was still $300 today. Or what is it, $200, $250, whatever. Yeah, $250 I think is what it launched at. Imagine it still cost that today. They never did the price drop. Would you sit here and keep trying to justify, oh, because of the 3D screen tech, even though it's been 7 years? Like, things get cheaper over time. They, therefore, should have their prices reduced over time. But and Nintendo does that sometimes. This is just one of those aspects where I don't like Defense Force in general. I feel like there's a time and place to defend something and a time and a place to be like, look, you got to let it go. And when that time and place is always really, really fishy. I've defended Nintendo keeping the prices of their games at $60 for multiple years. But I also understand the other side of the coin. And just because I'm okay with it doesn't mean you need to be okay with it. And I feel like that's just something in general we as gamers need to do, is become more accepting that not everyone needs to agree with what we have to say. I don't really care if you think the dock is fine. What I care about is that turning it around and trying to rip me a new one because I don't agree with you. I'm not sitting here ripping you a new one over it, so why are you ripping me one? It just is what it is. We don't need to be so defensive of the products we love. Again, we're talking about multi-billion-dollar companies. Anytime someone brings up how Nintendo's a business and they need to make money, Nintendo does make money. They made money during the Wii U era. The Wii U was an utter failure, and they still made money. I mean, but we have to back off that train. We're talking about multi-billion-dollar companies, not companies going bankrupt and closing down and doing whatever they need to do to stay open. We're talking about a company that's massively profitable, has been massively profitable for over 30 years at least, and obviously was doing well when they used to be a toy company and a Hafuno card maker. So it is what it is. You guys let me know what you think about all this Defense Force nonsense down in the comments below. Again, rampant fanboyism is something I've always kind of been against, even though I know my channel is going to attract some people like that. And I'm sure this video is going to make even more people unsubscribe from me. But you know what? At the end of the day, maybe those are people that I didn't want subscribed here anyways. I want passionate Nintendo fans here. Heck, I don't even care if you're a fanboy, as long as you're able to be critical of the thing you love and admit, you know what, not everything is perfect. Anyways, folks, I'm Nathaniel Rofajans from Nintendo Prime, and if you like this video, you know what to do. And if you like the gameplay, I don't even know what game I'm playing right now. Hopefully you guys enjoy that as well. Smash that like button, hit the subscribe, hit that bell icon so you get notified of every video and every live stream we do. Otherwise, folks, I will just catch you in the next one.